Hello, my name is Hazel and I'm the Schools and Colleges Liaison Manager at Royal Holloway, University of London. This recording is to give you an indication of how you can write a reference to go on the UCAS application. We're going to be looking at what actually a UCAS reference is, the guidelines set by UCAS, but also give you an idea of what we're looking for as a university and a simple structure that you can follow. According to UCAS, a reference is a piece of text where you are aiming to give universities and colleges an informed and academic assessment of an applicant's suitability for further study. There are several areas that you can cover on the reference, and we strongly recommend that you have a look at the student's full UCAS application before you start to write the reference, looking at things such as their academic performance, why they've chosen the subject and the career path that they want to take, but as also be aware of any mitigating factors, because if there is something that's going on with that particular student that might affect their academic performance, then the reference is the ideal place to make a note of it. Guidelines set by UCAS are that there must be 4,000 characters or no more than 4,000 characters, and that includes spaces, or 47 lines of text. So you're looking at around 3/4 of an A4 page, if that gives you some idea of how long the reference should be. Some European characters are acceptable, but you cannot use bold or italics or use underline to make your point. We strongly recommend that you use Word or similar to write your reference for the first time, because when you are inputting it into the UCAS system, the page will time out after 35 minutes, and it would be awful if you then lost all of that hard work. The reference is not available to the student. However, some students will choose to request a copy from UCAS, so you do need to bear that in mind when you're writing. We paid particular attention when preparing this presentation as to how to handle the current situation with COVID-19. UCAS advises that instead of including information in the actual reference, that you have a dedicated page on your website to say what sort of support the students received during the coronavirus. That way, the page can be updated as things change, and you can just put a note of the actual website address into the reference. Then in the reference itself, you can include details of how that particular student was affected, whether there was illness or bereavement in their family, how they coped with the online provision, and any extenuating circumstances that you feel need to be covered. So why is a reference so important? It helps universities in the selection and decision-making process. If you consider that some of the top universities, they may ask for certain A-level grades, let's say A-star AA, to get into a particular degree, and everybody who applies is predicted an A-star AA, then universities will use the personal statement as well as the teacher reference to help distinguish between the profiles. It gives the universities a chance to really understand the potential of the applicant and their ability to succeed at university, and also provides information about anything else that the university should know, so any personal circumstances or disruption to studies. So what are we looking for? We're looking for information about the student's school or college, their suitability for their chosen course, academic achievement post-16 and their potential, and any academic qualities or particular skills that they have. We're also looking for confirmation of what the student has said in their personal statement, as well as any details about external activities or employment that might be relevant to what will make them a good university student. And as we mentioned before, looking for extenuating circumstances where that's applicable. So who reads them? Every university has a different policy. At Royal Holloway, we have a centralised admissions function, which means that it will be the central admissions team that are reading references. On some occasions, the reference will go off to the particular department. If the student has come through an unusual academic journey, for example, then the department will get involved to make sure that the student is capable of studying at university level. These people then decide by either personal judgment or comparing to a checklist of criteria. And as mentioned previously, references are used as part of the selection processes, but also for near misses at confirmation. So during confirmation, if a student is borderline in terms of grades, then we will revisit their application, reread their personal statement and reference, and make a decision as to whether we can allow them on the course. Very simple reference structure for you here. You probably already have your own way of writing a reference, but if you haven't, then this is a good place to start. Then of course you can mix it up the way that you want to. We've put an indication in there of how many characters you should use in each section, but that's purely as a guide. So some information about the school or college that the student attends. Then really focus on their suitability for their chosen course. If they're studying A-levels or individual BTECs, then a subject by subject report. If they're studying an access to higher education diploma, then some information about what subjects they studied in that diploma, any mitigating circumstances, and a concluding statement. So in terms of writing about the school or college, really this should be quite a brief section. So give the reader an indication of the size of the school that the student is studying at, and an idea of how many students actually go on to higher education. And as you can see on the slide, we really just want to get an understanding of how does this student fit in with everybody else. Whilst we've said there's no need to include details regarding widening participation, this is your choice as well, because different universities do have different ways of approaching WP criteria. So if your school does meet a lot of WP criteria, then I do recommend that you include information in this section about that. Have a read through the student's application and pay attention to why are they interested in a particular subject, their strengths, skills and personal qualities, and their achievements and work experience. Then when you receive subject reports from the teachers, you can assess their suitability for the course and really spell out why the student is ideally suited to study the subject they've chosen. For subject reports, you need to have a look and see if there are any areas that are being repeated in the subject reports, and you can pull those together into one section. So the subject report should include academic and practical skills, the student's capability as an independent learner, give examples of the student exploring the subject outside of the guidance they've received, their ability to work hard and keep to deadlines, and their attainment in comparison to the rest of the group. And you can collect all of this material, and as I said, if several reports agree on a certain skill base or skill set for the student, then there's no point to repeating it 3 or 4 times, but bring it together as an overarching theme. Make sure that the reports have a clear structure. The most relevant subject should be listed first, and a new paragraph can then be allocated to each subject. And make sure that the relevant subject to the student's course has the most detail. Make sure that the student's name is correct throughout. It can be very easy to copy and paste and forget to change the name, and it happens quite a lot. So just pay special attention to that to make sure that you're referring to the student by the right name throughout the reference. So as an example, In this one, talking about history, the student is obviously very strong in history, and the referee has talked about how she can develop analysis using a wealth of examples, has spoken about the student can debate certain aspects of her work, that she's done extra reading around the subject. So this gives you an idea of what sort of thing we're looking for in the subject report. And then this one is covering maths, where again, very strong student in mathematics, and we've been given an idea of where the student's particular aptitude lies. So in this case, in calculus and its applications, and we can get a real understanding of how gifted this particular student is in the mathematics arena. With special circumstances, if a student's studies have been disrupted due to illness or family issues or whatever it could be, then consult with the student first and make sure that they are comfortable having that written about in the reference. It does give us an idea of what's going on, and it's better for us to know before results day if there have been extenuating circumstances. So if something happens after the reference has been submitted, but before or whilst the exams are happening, then it's a good idea to let the universities know so they can take that into consideration. Universities don't look that favourably on once the results have come out to then receive details about extenuating circumstances, because we'd much rather know in advance. It's an extremely hectic time when the results are actually released to take that into consideration. But if they know ahead of time, then they can start to do something about it. Common issues could be that a student doesn't do very well academically, so focus on other skills and qualities that they might have. And if you don't know the student that well, try and meet with them beforehand or talk to colleagues who knows the student much better than you do. And if you don't know anything about the subject that the student wants to study, then ask the student, because they will definitely know what's going on, and using their words, you can give you some background research that you can then use in your reference. So in general, a reference needs to be specific and show that you know the student. Write clearly and concisely. Admission specialists are experts at speed reading, so feed them the information. Don't make it hard for them to go and look for it. Keep the paragraph about the school short. We want to know more about the student. Don't mention one specific institution, because this reference will be sent to the student's 5 choices, and universities are expecting honesty. Now that was a very much a snapshot of what makes a good teacher reference. If you do have any questions, please do get in touch with us by emailing schools@royalholloway.ac.uk, and we will do our best to help. And we wish you the very best of luck in writing your references. Thank you.